I saw the Mother of God. During the night of his last Christmas, toward dawn, Valeriu testified to his friend Ioan Ionelide. This night, I kept vigil. I was composing my carol. I wanted it to be very beautiful. I sang it in my head. I heard it in the high heavens, from where it descended. Rather difficult for me, since I do not know musical notes and I have to sing by ear. So, I was awake, lucid, and serene, when all of a sudden, I noticed a photograph of Sita, the girl he had loved, in my hand. Amazed by this, I lifted my gaze, and at the head of my bed I saw the Mother of God, clothed in white, vivid, real. She was without her child. Her presence seemed material to me. The Mother of God was actually beside me. I was happy. I forgot everything. Time seemed endless. Then she said to me, "I am your love. Do not be afraid. Do not doubt. My Son will be victorious. He has sanctified this place now for future life. The powers of darkness are growing and will frighten the world for some more time, but they will be scattered. My Son is waiting for people to return to the faith. Today, the sons of darkness are bolder than the sons of light. Even though it may seem to you that there is no more faith left on earth, nevertheless, know that deliverance will come, albeit through fire and devastation. The world still has to suffer. Here, however, there is still much faith, and I have come to encourage you. Be bold. The world belongs to Christ." Then the Mother of God disappeared, and I remained overwhelmed with happiness. I looked at my hand, but the photograph was no longer there. Not long afterward, he related to Ionelide, "Late last night I was praying. I felt comforted by the grace of God, and I secretly rejoiced in the gift that I had been given. I was awake, conscious, and happy. Suddenly I felt that something odd was happening to me, something apart from my own will. Beginning with the extremities of my body, my soul began to desert me. Not only was I not afraid, but I knew I was not dying, and the more my soul left my body, the more my interior life grew. My soul rose gently toward my chest, toward my neck, toward my head. I felt happy, pure, illuminated by a holy light. My mind has never been as lucid as it was then. I knew that the Lord was with me. I was happy to be in His power. Time seemed to expand. I no longer felt pain in my body. I looked at my body without wanting it or rejecting it. Life and matter seemed to me to be miracles. My soul quickly drew up to my mouth and left my body. I realized then that I could go anywhere I wanted without being obstructed by matter. It was wonderful. An unspeakable joy overwhelmed me. My first thought was to go see my family, but then I remembered the fathers in the Patericon that counsel you not to entrust yourself to the workings of spirits unless you are under obedience, lest the devil deceive you and you be lost. The thought appeared in my mind of the old hermit to whom the devil appeared as an angel of light. The old man had departed from his obedience to the abbot and the monastery, and he considered himself guided by God Himself, and thought that the others were jealous of him. Then the angel came to him and told him to call all the brothers to the well in the courtyard of the monastery, in order that the power of God be shown to them. They went to the well in the middle of the night. The bright angel appeared, and, entering the well, said to the hermit, "Throw yourself into the well, and I will pull you out, unharmed, in front of everyone, so that they may see you are a saint." The old man threw himself into the well and died like a wretch. Reminding myself of this, I was careful not to fall into temptation, and I decided to return to my body. Now, you see, I submit to obedience. Tell me what to do, and I will do it. Listening to him, I felt shuddered. I asked for 3 days off in order to pray. After 3 days, I went to him and said, "I believe that it is a work of God. Your humility is a guarantee of truth and goodness. You submit to me in obedience, but I do not have such a spiritually advanced experience, nor do I have anyone to consult, nor spiritual books to examine. I feel unworthy of such an honor and frightened by the responsibility. I do not doubt the possibility of miracles, but I also do not believe that they are absolutely necessary for our salvation. But glory to God for those things that are happening with us, with you, through Him. My advice is to be careful. You have proceeded well. Let's not go too far with the prospects that are opening up with this plan, for we have not yet been tested. Let us protect ourselves from temptation." Valeriu listened attentively and accepted everything I said to him without even a shadow of sadness, doubt, or resistance. He remained serene and reconciled with my decision, and it was exactly this humility of his that assured me that he dwelt in a state of grace. The Testimony of Father Mihai, Lungeanu. I arrived at Târgu Ocna in the spring of 1950 by a miracle of the Mother of God. In 1947, when I was arrested, I was in my 5th year of medical school in Iași. I was arrested because of my connection with a group of Legionnaire students at the school. In autumn 1949, I arrived at Pitești, where I entered the flames of re-education. On the first day, the beating lasted from 7:30 in the morning until noon. Then other beatings followed. I prayed to God constantly. There was only one night in which I didn't pray, and I have reproached myself for this all my life. If I had not prayed as much as I did, I would have collapsed completely. Even during beatings, I was praying all the time, "Lord, get me out of here and I will put my whole life at your feet." And I eventually got out. After a week or two, along with a few others, I was taken to Bucharest. I had had a kidney ailment since Iași. Because there was blood in my urine, I thought I had kidney tuberculosis, but it turned out to be something else. The orderly at Pitești realized that I was sick and sent me to Bucharest. During the time I spent at Bucharest, 3 groups arrived from Pitești, and after lung exams, the sick were sent to Târgu Ocna and the rest were sent back to Pitești. I don't know why, but I, who did not have tuberculosis, remained at Bucharest. I prayed, "Lord, do not send me back." I prayed a great deal to the Mother of God, and she helped me. After a while at Bucharest, without being sent anywhere else, one night I had a dream. I dreamt that the Mother of God said something to me. I don't remember what, but I recall feeling very guilty. Further along in the dream, I found myself in the courtyard at Bucharest, along with a few of my colleagues. In that little courtyard, there was a cherry tree in bloom on which some clothes had been hung out to dry. The courtyard was in the shape of a triangle. At the peak was the guard tower, with a sentry guarding us, while at the other side, at the base of the triangle, was the gate to the prison. The gate opened and a guard entered. "Which one of you is Lungeanu?" "I am." "Pack your bags and leave." I woke up. I wondered what the dream meant. In the morning, I was taken out for a walk. In the courtyard, just as in the dream, the sentry in the guard tower and the cherry tree with clothes hanging on it. The gate opened and a guard entered. "Which one of you is Lungeanu?" "I am." "Pack your bags and leave." Just like in the dream, they put me on the prison bus and I arrived at Târgu Ocna, where I stayed for 3.5 years. Through a miracle, the Mother of God saved me, and instead of being sent back to Pitești, she brought me to Târgu Ocna. At Târgu Ocna, apart from the administration that could not even begin to compare with that of the other prisons, what was distinctive was the spiritual atmosphere. It was an atmosphere of prayer. Here I met Valeriu Gafencu. He was in room number 4, the room for those who were dying. As a medical student, I was put in room number 5, which was connected to room number 4, and I assisted those who were seriously ill. I gave injections, I cleaned wounds, I changed bandages, and so on. Since I was around Valeriu on a daily basis, I had many discussions with him and learned a great deal from him. I perfected the technique, so to speak, of the prayer of the heart. Valeriu talked with everyone about faith. In the room with those who were dying, there was a medical student named Traian Manu. He was paraplegic, paralyzed from the waist down, with sores all over his body. His tailbone was even exposed, and his sores emitted a rotten smell like that of a sewer. Every day I prepared a bandage for him and removed the pus with a stick. I spoke with him. He was not a believer. Valeriu, whose bed was next to his, spoke with him a great deal. He decided that we pray for Traian for a week, and that several times a day each of us would say Psalm 50, "Have mercy on me, O God." After this, Traian returned to the faith, confessed, and received communion. Mihai Traian said to me, "I am in a state of euphoria that I cannot even describe to you. I feel an extraordinary joy." The words of the atheist to the Savior, "Jesus, joy of my heart," came to me. Traian died in peace. The same thing happened with Father Gerasim Iscu. "Brother Mihai," he said to me, "when I close my eyes, I hear extraordinarily beautiful melodies. I cannot find the words to tell you how beautiful these songs are." General Topescu, who had been the chief of the military police under Carol II and Antonescu, was also there. He had very little interest in God. His warrant officer, Ili Niago, a man whom he greatly trusted, was arrested at the same time. Ili had a type of faith rarely found in those of his ilk. For an entire year, he gave the general portion of his own food in order to help him. He washed his clothes and spoke nicely with him. "General, this is the state of things. We are all dying and we are looking forward to life everlasting. Do you not want to be reconciled with God?" "But Ili, I do not have any sins." "General, we are all sinners." He spoke with the general in that way, day after day, until one day the general said, "Ili, I also would like to confess." "Yes, General?" These minute things, day after day, the behavior of Ili Niago, discussions with the others, with Valeriu, the atmosphere of prayer, dug into the heart of General Topescu. Father Gerasim Iscu knelt beside his bed and heard his confession. Then he received communion and died reconciled with God. Miticu Duțanu also died in room number 4. He was a student who suffered in silence, meditating on the sufferings of the Savior. One evening I heard him saying softly, as if to himself, the words uttered by Christ on the cross, "Ili, Ili, lama sabachthani?" My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" He died serenely and reconciled with God. At Târgu Ocna, I met up with Captain Mircea Cucu again, whom I had been with in re-education at Pitești. I remember that in the midst of a beating, I heard Sucanu give the command, 4 men, but who there was still a man. Beat Captain Mircea Cucu only on the head. Mircea sat on the edge of his bunk, making no gesture of self-defense. He only had one leg, he had lost the other on the Eastern Front. He had been a career officer, had worked in a tank unit, and had scored many victories. He was decorated with the Order of Mihai Viteazul, and I seem to recall that he received a citation to receive a medal from the army. Before this, he had told us many stories from the front. Now Țurcanu was repaying him for his many victories on the Eastern Front. I do not remember even one of the 4 men who beat him. Just as Țurcanu had ordered, they clubbed him only on the head. In a short span of time, his head looked like a melon, stained with blood. I was very impressed by the dignity with which he endured the blows. He did not cry out, he did not utter a word. He sat on the edge of his bunk and took it all as if he were not involved, as if he were only a spectator. After I parted company with Mircea, I no longer heard what happened to him or how much more he had to endure. We met up again about 2 months later at Târgu Ocna. Very thin and weak, he was a mere shadow of a man, sick with pulmonary tuberculosis. He had frequent hemoptyses. He was no longer able to leave his bunk and had been brought in from Pitești as part of a group of prisoners afflicted with tuberculosis. All of them had gone through re-education and had probably given the declaration that had been required of them. At Târgu Ocna, I was able to exchange a few words with him. One day I asked him if he believed in God. He responded in the affirmative, and this gladdened me very much. From the way in which Mircea conducted himself at Pitești and the way in which he confronted suffering and death at Târgu Ocna, I recognized in him the military career type, the fighter that doesn't make compromises, the hero. At Târgu Ocna, Mircea Cucu stayed in room number 2, in the bed next to Sava Ili, a student who had also gone through the hell of Pitești. One day, one of the men who had beaten Ili at Pitești came to his bedside. He knelt down beside his bed and asked forgiveness. Ili forgave him and spoke to him very nicely, as if nothing serious had ever happened between them. Later on, both of them died. The first to die was Ili, but about 2 years later the other one also died. At Târgu Ocna I also knew Father Gheorghe Calciu-Dumitreasa. He was a parish priest from Banat who had no special education or any store of knowledge, but who had great faith and a permanent state of prayer. Very quickly, he began to show signs that normally appear in the course of the practice of the prayer of the heart, the warmth, the pain that you feel, the flame that comes forth, and other things that I did not know about at the time but read about later in the Zbornik. Those at Târgu Ocna, Gafencu, Father Iscu, Father Gheorghe Calciu-Dumitreasa, Gheorghe Jamboiu had spoken about these signs, not because they learned about them from books but from their own ceaseless prayer. Father Calciu-Dumitreasa, as a priest, heard a lot of confessions at Târgu Ocna. He died later, in another prison. We received a series of packages from home. Some received streptomycin, which at the time was a miracle drug for lung diseases. The political officer, a devil in the shape of a human, summoned a few of us and said, "Look, here's your medicine." We'll give it to you if you give us information. In other words, become informers. I know of 3 who refused: Gheorghe Calciu-Dumitreasa, Jan Sultaniuk, and Edward Mizkiewicz. There may have been more, but these are the ones that I know about. All 3 were of an exceptional purity. They were called one by one. Sir, in the Legionnaire movement I did not learn to do such things. Go then, and die for Christ and the Legion. Go. March. It is a good thing for these matters to be understood. If not, then you would pass by them as if nothing happened. These men were martyrs. It is a pure sacrifice, and it has extraordinary value. It puts a choice before you. This or that. No. Go. And they died, Calciu-Dumitreasa and Mizkiewicz, in prison. Sultaniuk lived a while longer, but he did not recover. He had a bone tuberculosis of the leg and died shortly after his release at the sanatorium in Balatesht. For the sake of these pure souls, God took pity on the rest of us. For their sake, although it was attempted, what happened at Pitești was not allowed at Târgu Ocna.